in the sense that this RN, which was founded by Jean-Marie Le Pen, at the time was called the Front National, comes from it had these roots. Marine Le Pen, his daughter, did everything she could, even rebrand the party to demonize it and try to water down most of its most controversial attitudes. For instance, her father was very, part of those people skeptic about what the Shoah really meant. So she now stepped aside from that. She says that she will not leave the EU. She will not abandon the euros. They will not step out of NATO. So all these, what made her father's party, she has stepped aside from that. But many of her militants and many of the candidates in her party have this background.
We are the election station, of course, but not just for our general election, those across the globe too. And French President Emmanuel Macron called a snap parliamentary poll after the European elections, with first round voting underway today.
It looks like being a tough contest for President Macron's party. So what's going on? Let's speak to Sebastien Meillard, who is from the Jacques Delors Institute, also Associate Fellow at the Chatham House Foreign Affairs think tank here in London. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, good morning.
Now, it's a two-round election. What is the battleground today about? Is it between three blocks, as being suggested, a left-wing bloc, a right-wing bloc, and a centrist bloc?
It's definitely those three blocks that challenge each other. According to the latest surveys, there was a prediction that when you say right wing, it's actually far right wing, the extreme right of Le Pen's party, of the RN, which is ahead of the polls, with 36% perhaps it could have. And then you have the left, which includes the far left, an alliance who hopes to make it. According to the poll, they could get 27%, and then Macron's a centrist with 20%. So yes, it's a challenge between those three blocks, but with the center. Right now, before, according to the polls, the surveys last week, they would become third. So we may end up at the second round on this next Sunday, on the 7th of July, with many fights between the far left and the far right, which makes it a very dangerous and perhaps earth-shattering election for France.
Because this first round is really about knocking out, emerging with two top candidates in each constituency, is it?
Yes, the challenge for the first round is to make it to the second round, and to do that, you need to reach the threshold of 12.5 registered voters, and which requires a high turnout. And actually, the turnout for this election could be quite significant. At noon today, we saw that there was already over 25.9% of participation, which is more than 7 points higher than the last legislative elections we had 2 years ago, or even the one of 2017. So that means there will be many more candidates that reach that threshold. And so we may have also in the second round, not only the two poles, the far right and the far left against each other, but also still those three blocks against each other. And what will be very, very critical is what kind of what is the drive given to the voters? If we have to block the RN or if you have to block the far left, and the right-wing traditional Gaullist voters who are very, very uneasy with its choice, and one of the most parts of the electorate that hasn't really chosen their sides, their attitude will be key in the second round.
As things stand, though, it's been widely reported in this country that it looks like we're heading towards cohabitation between Macron, a centrist president, and a extremist right-wing government led by John Bardella, the number two to Marine Le Pen. Is that what seems likely to happen?
That's one possible scenario. but that will require for Le Pen's party to get an absolute majority, because the the head of the party, Jordan Bardella, who is a 28-year old, already ruled out that if he didn't get an absolute majority, so if he doesn't get more than 289 MPs out of the 577, he would not accept to be prime minister. So he may get a slim majority, but if he doesn't have this absolute majority, there will not be a cohabitation. And so the other very possible scenario is a hung parliament, where you have those three blocks and no real majority coming out. And that would require, after the 7th of July, after the second round, to try to build up a new kind of coalition, and for those parties to compromise, which is a political culture that is very unusual in France, and that the Fifth Republic has not used us to.
And there's a long piece in the Sunday Times, a historical piece looking at France, and it really says that it sees parallels if Rassemblement National emerge as the ruling party. It sees parallels with 1940 and the Vichy government and pro-Nazi sympathies. Do you see that parallel?
Indeed, in the sense that this arène, which was founded by Jean-Marie Le Pen, at the time was called the Front National, comes from it had these roots. Marine Le Pen, his daughter, has did everything she could, even rebrand the party to demonize it and try to water down most of its most controversial attitudes. For instance, her father was very, part of those people skeptic about what the Shoah really meant. So she now stepped aside from that. She says that she will not leave the EU. She will not abandon the euros. They will not step out of NATO. So all these, what made her father's party, she has stepped aside from that. But many of her militants and many of the candidates in her party have this background.
So what would it mean for Europe?
Oh, if in the case we had such a cohabitation, it would be a tough and rough one, because Macron would still remain in power. He has ruled out of stepping down, so he will stay for 3 years. So he would be the head of state, guaranteeing France's European stance, and still remain very vocal on it, as he has been a stauncher supporter of Europe, and he would still be sitting at the European Council, at the European summits in Brussels, while at the same time he would lose many of the budgetary means and even for the nominations. So it would be a France with two voices, which make it very confusing, and so a sort of marginalized France in the EU, which is of course very worrying, not only for Germany but for many of the EU's of France's main partners.
Sebastien Meillard, thanks very much indeed for being with us, and of course coverage of the French elections this Sunday and next Sunday here on Times Radio, the election station.